WWE kind of falling on themselves slightly. But we've got a lot of questions about that. But what do you make of the actual sort of build up and the way WWE are presenting it? Like the only thing I didn't like about it, Matt, was that whole business. What was that bloody slogan they said at the end of it? Like something like, I don't know, like reality now becomes, or I can't think what they put on it, but I was like, oh god, that looks cheesy.
They're booking it as the fantasy match or something.
Yeah. So.
No, fantasy becomes vanity, I reckon.
Yeah,
or
something like that. Yeah. But
just kind of makes me think, whose fantasy is this? Someone who's got a lot of power, sitting backstage, rubbing their hands, going, "Oh yes, I've been waiting years for this." They ruined it last time, but I can make it better. I can make it right again.
Yeah, so someone's got to hang up on it somewhere, and we're going to get it no matter what. Going into this, aren't we? So I actually enjoyed that, and really, I said as well a couple of weeks ago, I love it when Brock does those sit-down interviews. That is where he's most comfortable at. Like, you see him doing that in UFC, and he's just much more comfortable. Sending him out in the ring, there's no point with Brock Lesnar doing that. I mean, he might as well just have Paul Heyman on his own, in a lot of ways, because Heyman can do it himself, but damn, do not send those guys out in the middle of his hometown to do stuff. But we're going to get to more. We've got a few questions about that anyway coming up, so we'll come back to that. Now, Matt, the main event, we knew it was going to be the women. WWE, they said to themselves, well, we're going to do it. We're going to have the main event of the women, and boy, we're gonna make sure everyone knows about it by the end, because those entrances, they were. Those were entrances for remembering, weren't they? Really, the way they did it. That is typical WWE, though. Like, as soon as they decide something, and it takes bloody ages for them to do it, but as soon as they decide it, they then go overboard slightly. I feel all the time when they do stuff like that. But nonetheless, going into this match, first and foremost, I want to say one thing. I really enjoyed the Mick Foley segment with both the girls last week. And I felt it gave like a really decent. That's the best Mick Foley I've seen probably since he's been GM. I was like, at the last. And he wasn't talking about the bits about him sort of throwing himself off the damn thing. He was talking about, the more harshness of it, and it just made it sort of rung more true to me between them, and it sort of made it more edgy. But Matt, going into this, knowing that they were going to be the main event, obviously Bayley in her hometown as well, was you sort of really geared up for it at this point and thinking this is going to be the one, and nothing can stop them, and those incredible entrances?
Yeah, obviously the entrance that we saw when we saw him in New York, wasn't it? Or Brooklyn, I should say. That was the same one sort of reused. So I was kind of thinking, okay, well, they've done that kind of before, but I get what they're trying to pull off. They're trying to pull out the stops for the big main event kind of feel. I did kind of enjoy that because I was looking out for that. I mean, I made sure I didn't miss the entrances at that point, because I was like, well, I want to see this, because this is history making stuff, so they're going to put out all the stops. So I felt like that helped it a bit, doing that big main event kind of feel. And then when they stepped inside the ring, I was definitely like studying like the sort of expressions they had. I was trying to see if there was any nerves like edging into the face, and you could actually see the emotion, you could see the actual like the thinking behind their eyes, that this is a huge opportunity for them both, and they're probably in their mind thinking, we're going to get this right, we're not going to make any mistakes here, we want to actually achieve something. Let's go back to Shawn versus The Undertaker. Let's try and do something like that people haven't seen before. So I definitely enjoyed the sort of the general buzz of the arena. You could definitely feel the atmosphere for this.
Yeah, I felt the match itself, like some of the things they've done was pretty decent and also quite unique. Like, I hadn't seen it before, and I felt they'd done an incredible job. Sasha, I think, definitely gave a very decent performance. I mean, the thing is, Charlotte is Charlotte, and she's become into her own. I feel she's she's the most comfortable on that main roster from all the NXT girls that have come up. She's the one that's sort of embedded the easiest, but that is probably down to having Ric Flair at her side all the time. One of the greatest showmen and champions. Like, she seems to always come off. She carries herself very, very well, and even if she's not confident inside, her kind of outer appearance does not really show that sometimes. That's kind of a good thing, and I think she's very, very good on the mic. She's definitely good on the mic, and in this match, she was, you could tell this is WWE's place at the moment, is with Charlotte. Now, I mean, there were a lot of good things in the match, Matt. There were a few sort of moments I was like, oh my god. You started to get a little.
That was a hell of a bang, wasn't it?
Yeah. What did you think about the whole stretcher part of it, Matt? Because obviously that was a little bit of a nod. I felt to the Undertaker Mick Foley part. I definitely saw that. But what did you make of it? Because some of the fans, some of the feedback I got said it dragged out a bit too long. And it should have maybe, if they'd have only sort of moved on with it a little bit quicker.
It was a little bit drawn out, wasn't it, I suppose, yeah, and it didn't really make much sense to me, this kind of story that they were trying, the angle they were working, Charlotte tagged Sasha before the bell has rung, so the match isn't really legal, and then Sasha's leaving on the stretcher, yet they're going to hand over the title, without saying, like, considering that Raw is the next night, anyway, they could have just said, oh, Sasha's okay to compete in a rematch on Raw. Why hand the title over to someone like that? I get it's the main event and you don't want to lose the main event, but surely you'd find another female challenger backstage. I'm sure there could have been one to fill the spot. They would have been glad to do it properly. So it was a little bit confusing and a little bit forced that they were going to try and make it look like Sasha was going to overcome the odds and be a hero. Because if she could get off that stretcher when they said, we're taking your title off of you, then she could have got up and done it before they did that, surely. Just made it kind of look like it was almost a little bit heelish in a way. Sounded like something the Miz would have done, tried to get out of there, and then the title's getting taken away from you. No, I'm coming back.
Yeah, I couldn't understand that. I mean, I don't know if it looked better on paper, but it certainly didn't make much sense as a viewer watching that, knowing Sasha's character, what we're supposed to be watching her as. But yeah, I mean, like I say, I really enjoyed it. I feel as the what it was being built up to, there was all this emphasis on a women's match, but not, I think, more importantly than just a Hell in a Cell, although it is a big deal having Hell in a Cell, but I think the more important thing here, Matt, for me, is that the women got the main event spot. That was more important, I think, out of this than the first time these two women compete in Hell in a Cell. I felt that the actual idea that WWE give these girls that nod now, that absolute mark, and to put them up there on a pedestal and have them main eventing, does show that there's obviously a great deal of trust now going to them. Now, I guess a lot of people, I had quite a few negative feedbacks, was just the ending of the match, Matt. I mean, what did you make of the ending? Because a lot of people, they've written in and said this was a terrible ending, and it was like a great match, but just the ending just never really worked, and it sort of went on a bit too long, and it was just, when it happened, it just happened. It was like the air got sucked out. But what was your take on the ending and also the result that we got?
Well, yeah, I've got to say, I was watching the match, concentrating on it, thinking, wow, this is really good. I was really enjoying it. And then, she was getting thrown onto that table and thrown onto it again. And then, natural selection out of nowhere. And then, then the freak out, and I was like, oh, drop the F-bomb. I was like, what happened? I was sort of confused. For a couple of minutes, I was kind of thinking, well, this is not what I expected. She was in her hometown and she was coming in on this, and you was thinking, like, she didn't have the greatest first title run. surely her second one is the one that she was supposed to have. This is what was in my mind. And I was thinking that she could carry that, and have a few feuds with someone else maybe, or even if they needed to go to Charlotte again, that's fine, because they've done it and it works. But just the fact that now that this belt is just like a hot potato, it's getting passed around, back and forth, back and forth. At this rate, Charlotte will be 16-time women's champion, in the next 5 years to keep doing this. So definitely confused me a little bit, because I'm thinking now they have to fight again. They have to have, where can they go from Hell in a Cell? Everything else surely has now got to be a little bit underwhelming for another match in these two's kind of story.
Yeah, I was baffled at the finish. I never saw that coming. And in a booking standpoint, Matt, Sasha wins both her titles on Raws, but whenever she gets to the pay-per-view, she's coming up short, and Charlotte's winning, which is very odd that WWE have done it like that. But the only thing I could think of, Matt, is that are WWE now positioning Sasha to maybe turn heel, and maybe they feel she's more comfortable in that role, because certainly I don't think she's. I mean, you are the Sasha Banks fan, but and correct me if I'm wrong, but I just don't think she's quite got that attitude that everybody seemed to love down at NXT, where she was the boss, and it was more about. It wasn't so much about the whole dream business. It was just I am no one to be messed with, and this is my ring kind of thing. Whereas playing that baby face, I'm not sure she suits it as well. I think people want to cheer for her, but I think people will cheer for her either way. I just think people love the way she wrestles, and I don't think you can help that. But I think they were cheering for the character that we saw from NXT, as opposed to what we're getting now. And there could be the reality check that maybe they feel that this was maybe before ahead of time. Her and WWE decided that maybe she needs to go that route, so they would do this match and obviously have Charlotte being the number one for now, but perhaps position Sasha coming back, gearing her maybe towards Mania or something as the heel. But I don't know. I mean, any other thoughts to this, Matt? Because I mean, I don't know where they go after a Hell in a Cell. Quite frankly, like you said, I mean, this is the be all of be all. I think this was the only match of the three that really warranted this kind of match, to be quite honest with you. And so, yeah, even I'm a bit baffled to know where they go again. Obviously, there will be a rematch, but I've got a feeling that could just happen on Raw as opposed to Survivor Series. I do think they're gonna finish up things quite early. I just can't see where they go again. Like, what is the next thing? How more lethal can you get, and all the rest of it. So. It was baffling. Now, the sum up of the match, Matt. I mean, what did you give this overall, and what was your sort of, Charlotte obviously winning, like for her, Matt, going forward. I mean, do you think that they're going to line her up against, another up and coming babyface, or are they just going to continue with this sort of Sasha Banks Charlotte for longer?
Well, I'm definitely still surprised by the result, because I felt for sure that Sasha was going to sort of take this one, and then they could sort of put her against like Nia Jax or something. I think it would be a good heel for her to go against, whilst they were sort of leaving a little bit of a breathing space between her versus Bayley, But then no, they've gone this completely different direction to what I thought they may have. So it definitely left me confused. I can only hope that you're right, and they do kind of have plans to turn Sasha heel, because I do kind of think that's where her best character lies. This boss character wasn't really designed for face responses. It was pretty much, I'm a better person than you are, which is not the way to say to talk about people in a nice sportsmanship kind of way, is it really? But I hope Charlotte doesn't end up fighting Bayley though, because it would just be the destruction of two of their top kind of women stars now. They would have taken Seth